Thank you. Got the recording in there. Thank you, sir.
And
Now,
action.
okay, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Donnie Nelson, Executive Director of the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association and kind of the de facto chair of our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. And I hereby call our meeting to order at 1:01 p.m. for April 24th, 2024. To kind of give everybody a quick lay of the land, and obviously we've got some people on the outside that are watching it via YouTube. We're scheduled for a finish time of 2:30. That's a hard time. We've got some committee members that have some other appointments that they need to get to. But I feel like the way the agenda is structured and the items that we have on there, we're probably in the range of about a maximum of a 75-minute meeting. So we'll see if you hold me to that. Sometimes I make predictions, and sometimes they come true. Sometimes they don't. A note to the public, for those of you listening, the meeting packet, which includes the agenda, we're going to share here on the screen, but it's also available on NIAA.com. So that's the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association's website, NIAA.com. And if you go to the homepage, the top item under featured news is where the packet is. So if you can't see it on how we're broadcasting it, you're welcome to see it online as well. And with that, we'll move on now to item number 2. Tia Wonder, NIA Office Administrative Assistant, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Tia, let me mute mine, and we'll let you lead us in the pledge. Go ahead when you're.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, Miss Wonder. Appreciate that. There is the cover page for item number 2. Well, let's advance on to item number 3, shall we? And we'll do a roll call here for our committee members. First of all, I want to introduce NIA Legal Counsel Paul Anderson. He is joining with us. Mr. Anderson, your attendance is noted. Obviously, I won't call you in the role, but to note that you're here to make sure we stay on task, and if we have any questions pertaining to legalities, that you'll be available for us. So thank you, Mr. Anderson, for joining us. Okay, all right, here we go. Yeah, if you would. Nicholas Murray.
Present.
Thank you. Yeah, again, everybody else, you have to unmute yourself there for a second to call him. Carol Scott.
Present.
Thank you, Carol. Mark Stovak.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Adam Hunsaker.
Present.
Thank you, Adam. Jeremy Haas.
Present.
Thank you, Jeremy. Nicole McFarland.
Present.
Thank you, Nicole. Pamela Sloan.
Here.
Thank you, Pam. Mark Dianza.
Here.
Thank you, Mark. Rollin Stallworth, I don't believe you're here yet. You noted that you'll be rolling in as soon as possible. But just in case, Rollins, I don't see you on there. No, okay. Kyle Lemon. I don't think I saw Kyle on there just yet either. Okay. Steve Rohr.
Present.
Thank you, Steve. Ernie Howren.
Here.
Thank you, Coach. And we still have that vacated spot for the Southern Nevada Football Coaches Association. And when I do some introductions here in a minute, that's a position that I truly hope we can get filled with our next de facto chair and executive director. Committee Director Donnie Nelson present. Committee Secretary Tia Wonder.
Here.
Here, thank you. And a guest member for this meeting. Let's make sure if I see her on there yet. Stella Thornton, who's our junior legislator during our last session, working with Senate Bill 80. Stella, I do see you. Did I see you, Stella? Okay, Stella's here. Copy that. Thank you. I saw your post there in the chat. And a quick introduction of our next executive director of the NIAA. And I wanted him to say hello. He's the one who will be leading this committee after today, so moving forward. And that first meeting will most likely resume in the fall of the next academic athletic year. Mr. Tim Jackson, are you here? And if you are, turn over the microphone to you here for a couple minutes to say hello to everybody.
Thank you, Donnie. I am. Appreciate you including me in this meeting. I want to thank all of you for the work you've done. I've worked closely with Mark Dianza for many years at Durango High School. And Mark will attest that my commitment to student health and safety is hopefully above reproach. Mark, if I'm lying, don't say anything right now. But at the same time, I'm also a firm believer, and Mark can tell you that I had a philosophy that was, I don't care what it costs. If it's good for kids, we need to find a way. So with that, I thank you and look forward to meeting with you again in the fall, but I will stay here, be silent, and enjoy your day. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Welcome aboard. I know this committee will be appreciative of your mission in sports medicine and your knowledge and background. Certainly, you're going to keep this committee rolling, but we'll do that here towards the end of the meeting and do a little transition when it comes time. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to item number 4. It's our roll call here. And this will be the time to approve our agenda. So at this time, we need a motion and then a second to officially approve our committee's working agenda for today. And I would ask that such a motion include that for a flexible agenda, please. So do I have a motion for a flexible agenda? Anybody could just unmute and say hi. It's okay.
Hey, this is Pam. This is Pam. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and also to make it a flexible agenda if need be.
Thank you, Ms.
Second.
Sloan. At this time, if somebody would second for us.
Second.
And that was Dr. Stovak. Thank you, sir. All right. So what I'm going to do, thank you both of you. For all those that are in favor, I'm actually going to ask that you remain quiet. Okay. So all those in favor remain quiet. At this time, if there's anybody opposed to the agenda, why don't you go ahead and voice your opposition at this time by unmuting. Going once, going twice. All right, with that said, we'll pass approval of the agenda 107. That's noted. We have a working agenda. Thank you, everybody. And as we go through this agenda, you know what, we tried to structure it specific to items at hand today. Will be items moving forward, which I'll discuss at the end of this meeting, you know, coming to you in the fall when Mr. Jackson takes over, things coming from the NFHS Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, other topics that all of you, I'm sure, will want to address in due time. But for today, we've got certainly a workable agenda. So thank you, everybody. Let's go to item number 5. Let me get past the agenda. And again, not make you dizzy here and scrolling through pages. I will read the intro for public comment here. And this is on page number 9, our cover page of our packet for item number 5. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any item not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until compliance with notice procedures of the open meeting law has been accomplished. Members of the public who wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda are hereby instructed to complete a public comment card and submit to Donnie Nelson prior to the opening of this item. Additionally, members of the public who have submitted public comment by email will have their email read into the record. Limit of 3 minutes per person and or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of the group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. The time limits and restrictions just described will apply to emailed comments being read into the record as well as live comments. From my side, in terms of submitted public comment, just again, check some emails. I do not have anything in writing. I have not seen any text messages come in at this point. Ms. Wonder is sitting out there. We have no public in the building at this time. Okay, thank you, Ms. Wonder. So you're shaking her head. Appreciate that. I do want to make a comment to those that might be listening out there. Is that, oh boy, how do I get involved in a public comment, either generally or as we go through a specific item? If anybody in the public wants to, as we go through, I'm going to give you my email address. So anybody wants to write it down. Again, for Donnie Nelson at the NIAA. My email address is my first name, Donnie, D-O-N-N-I-E. First initial, my last name, N for Nelson, so D-O-N-N-I-E-N at NIAA.com. One more time, Donnie N at NIAA.com. I will do my best to check emails we progress through each item. In case there are public comments that are general, because there will be a closing public comment item at the end of this meeting, and that will be for things that are not listed on the agenda. Or as we go through our 3 main items here, if you have public comment that you want to be read into the record during that item, you're welcome to email me. Can't promise you because we want these things submitted in advance, but I'm going to try and do the best I can to make sure we adhere to that. Keep things the way they're supposed to be. But with that, let me double check real quick one more time. I don't have anything at this time for a public comment. Oh, you're going to see my files when I do that, aren't you? Okay, let's go the other way to that. So, okay. I do not see that this time to the files. So yeah, I have to unshare my screen as well. So we'll do that towards the end just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, well, we're going to move on then to item number 6 this time. We have with us today Chris Brown, Sales Director, and Charlie Wund, CEO of Injure Free. And Mr. Brown and Mr. Wund will provide a presentation regarding a reporting platform that allows schools and teams to track practice and contest injuries for all sports, which could become a data collection site for the NIAA. And to have the lay of the land for this item, so I'll get to that here, cover page for number 6. Mr. Brown and or Mr. Wund will have 5 minutes for either one of you or both of you to present collectively. And at the end, because this is discussion item, again, this is a discussion item, not for action, but our committee is certainly welcome to engage in some questions and answers with you as follow-ups. And I know I will have a couple of questions for each of you or one of you as well as we get to that point. So with that, let me go ahead and turn it to the page. And Mr. Brown, if you're going to be the one that's going to start us off, I'll let you kind of guide me through the slides. But again, everybody has that. I'll kind of go one by one. But Mr. Brown, are you there with us?
Yes, I'm here,
Great.
Donnie. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thanks everybody for having us back again, coming full circle here. And just to recap, I had reached out to Donnie and the NIAA last year when we saw the SB 80 bill come through. And Stella, got to commend you and your team getting that bill passed. Really necessary. We've been working in the return to play space for a long time, and we always wondered, why isn't return to learn first? And it's great to see that that be taken. And so last time, just like here, we have 5 minutes. It's very quick. That slide deck is very straightforward for everybody to consume. And just really want to get into 3 main points here of, creating a centralized injury documentation and data collection site for the NIAA, tracking concussion management, return to play, return to learn, following those protocols in a very systematic manner, and then the data collection on the backside, and how all the integrated parties here and the health partners, the University of Nevada, how everybody can come together with this data to really track it in real time and over time, to effectively put in policies and procedures that match what's going on, as far as the data set goes in the population of Nevada high school sports. So like I said, this deck is really straightforward, and we can go through it more, but I really want to kind of hand this off to Charlie, our CEO, who started the company, really in response to the concussion legislation put back about 10, 13 years ago, and digitizing this process and what we can do. So I'll hand it off to Charlie to kind of pull in some of the meat and potatoes of some of the data and actual insights that we can put together for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. And appreciate you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for giving us your time. I think in summary and kind of looking at what the opportunity is here for Nevada and the state of Nevada, as a former high school athlete, high school athletic director, and now working in the space that we've been in here in youth sports for the last 15 years, we have been working with large population sets every single day. We have an example data set that we can pull up here if you'd like to see what an aggregated set looks like of about 50 high schools in Philadelphia Public School District. The idea is that we know that we can't put athletic trainers in every high school financially. It's very difficult to do. However, there are ways for us to collect information and data to help streamline healthcare pathways for our parents and our athletes, reducing those medical costs, getting them back on the fields quickly, but also safely. Ultimately, any health systems that's involved, there is a fragmented ecosystem around the care of our high school athletes, and we don't know essentially where they're going, how they're coming back, if they've received proper care. We're trying to close those gaps and close the loop in our communication. And so while we do that with the Injure Free platform, or as that's occurring, we're also aggregating the data to Chris's point. That information can be used by this committee to suggest and enact on policies, which we probably already know are the right thing to do. But without data, it's hard to have that conversation. This supports proactive decision-making, and allows us to understand when we make rule changes, are they effective and are they producing those intended outcomes? So it's a continuous loop of quality improvement that we're hoping to enact in the state of Nevada. Currently, right now, Injury-Free oversees about 5 million athletes nationally. Towards the end of this year, we're projecting closer to a 10 to 12 million number, which represents roughly 25% of the youth sports market in the country, including high schools. At this time, would love to be able to show you some of the live data and what that looks like when it's aggregated for a high school population of about 50 high schools, but also welcome to open the floor to comments at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Brown and Mr. Wund. What we'll do, because this is a discussion item, and if there's interest by the committee to bring forward for possible action, but I'm going to ask some questions to kind of lead the committee in discussions with you here, then that could be a possibility in the next meeting as well. And also, you're both welcome to email me anything you'd like with regards to sharing with the committee. So if you talk about some aggregated data, please send it my way, and I will absolutely share it so everybody can see that. We want to be cognizant of time on this agenda item because it's for discussion. But with that, I'm going to give you a few more minutes to talk, either one of you. So first question I'll have to you is pretty straightforward, right? When we get to the point, the NIAA is a membership-based organization, obviously with public schools, private schools, charter schools. We have 123 members at this time in our association. What would be the cost for the NIAA to adopt such a program?
Our annual subscription for the use of the software platform runs about $495 a year. We would obviously look at a reduced fee for the volume, depending on whether or not this is an opt-in, which we see all the time from a membership organization. It's up to the schools. Or if it's a mandate, then we would be very aggressive with the discounts because we know then that there is a commitment from the committee. What is also an ancillary benefit of our platform and programming is that we actually generate revenue for the organizations that we work with that typically exceed or offset our costs and provide revenue streams into the NIAA and or the individual schools and populations. That revenue is generated through the sale of personal insurance products like a student accident product and or additional services that potentially schools may want to use us for. And we could then put in some type of revenue share model with the NIAA that would allow us to offset the costs for the state high school organization as well.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. To clarify, you mentioned $495. Is that per school? And is there a license? Okay, per school, thank you. And is there a general license fee that would go towards the association on top of the $495 as just an overall structure implementation fee?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Note that. Next question I have, and again, I'll turn it over to some committee members and other questions. In a brief time, in a 3 to 5 minute time frame at the most, if you would please. How do you see the implementation or the onboarding of this taking shape? And I mean that in terms of a time frame, in terms of presenting management requirements to the schools and what they need to do, how to do, why to do it, and then obviously ultimately I'm taking that's going to respond to we need to have correspondences from the NIA office out to our member schools. We need to have some kind of a presentation, maybe at preseason meetings, and probably also I imagine some kind of an online training session. Again, that's a lot to throw at you in a very in a 3 to 5 minute frame, but it would at least help us get started towards the next meeting. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, software implementation and rollouts obviously are a big concern whenever you're looking at a system implementation, something like of this scale. We've done it a lot of different ways with a lot of different organizations to the same degree. Some have failed, some have worked. And so they're really all independent of each other. We've learned from those mistakes what does and does not work and streamline that rollout to make it as light a lift as possible. As I mentioned, I used to be a high school athletic director, fully aware of what's going on August 1st at our high schools. And so we're going to want to look at an implementation that takes place before school years are out. We're thinking about next year, and then working with staff, athletic trainers, athletic directors, gearing up then into that August timeframe. We roll out at the high school level on a seasonal approach. It is not necessary to be done all at once, especially if you're looking at those spring athletics. But from a key personnel, we're looking at administrators and any kind of medical staff at each location that would receive training by our staff, either on site or virtual, And it's all done through some seamless integrations around the registration rollouts that we put together. We draft those communications. Having that email list and listserv from the NIAA, it goes a long way, and there's a cohesive message that's being delivered. We would always also recommend that before any of those communications went out, we met together with the NIAA, did the planning, understood what the protocols are so that we could streamline and set up the system architecture prior to rollout, so that when the invitations are being sent to staff at the high school levels, systems are ready to go. It's a matter of logins and a tutorial. We also have a system implementation right now for kind of an self-guided onboarding that's built into the platform. Many of our athletic trainer users we work with on the event space are told they're using the platform for documentation. They're assigned to an event, a weekend tournament on a Monday or a Tuesday, and they're reporting in our platform on a Friday without a support call. It's intuitive. It's designed to be easy to use by folks who are familiar with the process, what SOAP notes are, et cetera, et cetera. For the administrators and for the structures, our team and the customer support that's built into that annual subscription fee includes all of the setup per organization. So for every high school, we would set it up with the proper documentation, et cetera, et cetera. We're also able to create an API with any kind of registration system that's used by the state or on a state level that helps with that seamless integration of roster imports, coach emails, et cetera, et cetera.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. That's well explained and a great time frame too. So just a note for you, Charlie, and for Chris to hear as I'm talking to our committee members now. So the process of moving forward from this point, and again, I wanted to do a second discussion item. So, right, we did this once, but it was a while ago. I'd say a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, sometimes it seems, is that if there's interest in this committee, you would communicate again with Mr. Jackson when he takes over in the fall, and express interest to bring this back as an action item, but within this committee, right? This committee is an advisory committee. And if the advisory committee, this SMAC, decides to take it on as an action item in the next meeting, then if there's a possible approval at that time, it's really recommended at that point back to the NI office staff to work with the Board of Control. The Board of Control and the office staff would have to certainly present cost measures, and that would even go as far as superintendents. It would go into schools and districts and offices. It's a budgeting item. Obviously, it could be a significant lift for our two largest school districts in particular. Not that it wouldn't be a lift financially for any other school and or district, but that's the process. So I think in the term of it, and I appreciated Mr. One's comments about it could be implemented for, say, on a season by season basis, right? So that helps set the tone as to the need to go through the process, but not structuring the process that it can't be started until the start of the school year. Clearly, it's going to take some time to go through on a financial budgeting item on a school by school basis. I don't know what otherwise would be thought of from the Board of Control to ask the NI office staff. This office has not done grant writing for years, since I was early in the office days. But anyway, so that's where we are. So let me, if I may, then committee members, I'm gonna try and just scroll down a little bit here. If I see a yellow hand raised, let me know if you have a question for Mr. Brown or Mr. Wund. Let me give you a couple seconds here, and then if not, not that I'm trying to discourage you from asking a question, but if not, then we'll communicate internally and see where we go. Dr. Murray, let's have you go first, and then we'll go to Mr. Haas and then Mr. Hunsaker. So yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Awesome, thanks. Appreciate you guys coming and chatting with us today. I have a question about that. I was actually in that virtual athletic trainer element. There's quite a need in the state across different areas to have essentially telemedicine, especially with the new concussion legislation and implementation. It's going to be a challenge. It's something we've been working on our back end. Could you explain a little bit more what that looks like? And are you considering expanding into teledoc services, not just athletic training?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife is actually a graduate of Virginia City High School and UNR. So I'm very familiar with the layouts of how remote we can be and the need for that virtual component. We partnered with a telemedicine company who specifically were focused on athletic trainers from an entry point into that healthcare pathway. somebody who can give a recommendation. Do I need to drive down Geiger Grade and get down into Reno, or can I, take care of this stuff at home or see somebody local? Do I need a specialist? That's what an athletic trainer is going to be used for primarily. You can't do a lot of eval virtually from that standpoint on an orthopedic issue. Also, virtual athletic training comes into play for oversight during events, but more for the parents, again, in those times of need, and then also during the recovery process. However, after that initial athletic trainer call, there is a teledoc available immediately as well. So if there is an escalation that's needed, that telemedicine service is also available on the back end. What we're working on right now is bundling, quote unquote, a personal accident product from an insurance level that offers this virtual athletic trainer services at no additional costs, so that then the insurance would also help pay for and cover any co-pays with that virtual doctor if that's needed also. So our goal is to reduce the financial barrier to proper medical care and also scale the availability for specialists within the athletic field as an athletic trainer.
Thank you, Dr. Murray, for asking that question. Thank you, Mr. Lund, for answering it the way you did. I think that was explanatory. Nick, a follow-up, or are you good? Okay, thank you.
Happy with that. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeremy, Mr. Haas, go ahead, sir. Question?
Yes. So I guess my question is, we're already using I'm down in the Vegas area here, and we're already using a EMR called Athletic Trainer System. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but I guess what would set your program apart from, like, say, ATS or Sportswear, some of those other ones that are being used? And then I did have a follow-up question about the virtual AT thing, if you want to answer this one first.
Sure, yeah. First off, I think, Sportswear and ATS were around when we looked at what was going on in the injury space in youth sports when we built Injure Free. I mean, literally, they were CD-ROMs built in the 1990s. Yeah. They've updated their online programming. They've continued to stay up to date, but those programs are specifically for athletic trainers and athletic trainers only. Those are not meant for use by coaches, parents, administrators, etc. What we've designed is a connected community, a connected care community, where we can add in other non-medical professionals and allow them to be able to communicate in real time and on a better understanding of what's going on. So, for example, when a parent uploads a doctor's note in our platform, that alerts an administrator at that school or an athletic trainer that document's been uploaded. They then can look at that document in real time, see what's going on, change the status of that athlete from a not cleared to a cleared status. And then those real-time alerts go out to all the coaches that have access as well. So we don't need to have the phone tree communication or the cell phone tree of, is this child available or are they not for tonight's game? Additional benefits include a lot of the data collection and how we use that in our communications with the clients. We provide each school with their own data dashboard and allow them to customize that so that they're getting an insight of the value metrics that they want to have, not necessarily what's canned for them. And then, outside of that, there's a lot of other ancillary issues, like we do all the clearance. So any kind of background checking, this isn't necessarily for the high school market, but we do a lot of background checking. We do abuse reporting. So any kind of misconduct that might need to be produced. But we also deliver compliance and education to the parents and coaches and certify that they've gone through whatever that may be. That's customized per school, meaning we can show something specific for Vegas that isn't necessarily relevant for the entire state membership. It's going to only be relevant to a particular regional area. So those are some of the key distinctions. I would invite you to schedule an online demo with Chris or somebody along the lines, and you could see an apples to apples comparison and get a better sense of what's going on.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. And just real quick about the virtual AT that you had mentioned, who has access to that? Is it strictly like the school personnel, or can the parents access this virtual AT? And if so, have you ran into any situations where an athletic trainer maybe would have said, hey, look, you're not clear to participate, and then they go and they find the virtual AT that says, yeah, I don't think it's that bad. Have you ran into any conflict that way where there's, something along those lines?
couldn't imagine a situation where kids are trying to get back on the field before they're supposed to, right?
Yeah, right.
No, absolutely not. I mean, so first off, the virtual athletic trainer is meant as a supplement to what we expect a full-time athletic trainer on staff. In those cases, there is a hierarchy that's established. The virtual athletic trainer will not provide clearance in any way, shape, or form. I don't believe there's any scenario where virtually we can get to an orthopedic clearance without some kind of physical assessment being done prior. So if I establish care with a doctor and an orthopedic or so, and there's an insight at eval that kind of gave us a diagnosis, and now it's virtual during the recovery process, maybe then I can get, hey, yes, this child is cleared because they're at this level. But typically there's always an on-site in-person eval before any clearance is provided. So in no way, shape, or form are these athletic trainers meant for clearance. This is meant for, I have a question, I'm seeing things, I don't know who to talk to. We know ATs are the right person to go to for the sports world. We're creating that care ecosystem for schools that primarily are in rural areas or don't have that in-person access, that specialty care as an athletic trainer.
Understood. Appreciate
It's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Haas, for two excellent questions, and especially the second one being the follow-up. And Mr. One, thank you for your insightful replies to those. I've got 9 more minutes scheduled for this item. Mr. Hunsaker, you're up next, and then we'll go to Mr. Dianza. And I think those will be the 2 that will wrap us up for. So Adam, go ahead if you have a question, please.
Yeah, similar question, and I appreciate you elaborating on that. I'm an ATC in Northern Nevada, Carson City specifically. I utilize Healthy Roster, which I feel like does have a lot of similar features that you've mentioned, including coaches, parent access, bringing in care providers, and things like that. So maybe add like what would set you apart from like Healthy Roster, and then my second question is maybe for the committee as a whole is, if we were to adopt this, would we be more of an opt-in or make it a mandate? And to what ability could we mandate? For example, I know in the South, Dignity Health is providing the ATCs, and I don't know how it works down there. Is Dignity paying for ATS down there, or is Clark County School District? And for example, the hospital system that I work for is purchasing the license for Healthy Roster, not the school district. And so we may be switching around where some of these costs are coming from if we were to adopt this at a state level.
Yeah, and Charlie, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you real quick here. Adam, thank you. On the second question, I'm going to hold that because that is something, right, the committee would have to discuss on a universal level within the association or on an opt-in district by district level, right? There's a lot that goes into that. And I don't want to cut off, Mr. Brown or Mr. One in advance with this comment. So Charlie, if you remember the first question, go ahead, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, and then Jeremy, I want to let you get a chance to respond as well, kind of on how the model works. What we see typically in these types of relationships is that health systems are providing athletic trainers, therefore they're also paying for and providing the EMR systems. When that happens, that data and that control is owned by the health system. The fundamental difference between what we do as a company is that we represent the schools. This is the school's data. These are the kids that go to the school. This is not a health system program. It is an outreach program that they have in contract with the schools. That's a fundamental difference in how we approach the market across the board in any kind of EMR system that you're going to look at. So we're collecting data that does come from outside the healthcare purview, and therefore it can be used and leveraged in a lot of different ways. Injury is our injury documentation software. As a whole, what we do as a company is more risk management. And we work in the insurance space with insurance carriers so that we help these types of schools provide their data to the insurance discussion and actually reduce premium in those approaches. We have an intervention team on our staff. So we look at and developing interventions for schools and youth sports organizations when we see trends so that we're able to reduce risk that's occurring. And a lot of times that will happen when there's an athletic trainer in place. But as we know, half the schools in the country don't have athletic trainers or more. So what we're trying to do is provide and scale that availability of athletic trainers in as many different ways, like the virtual athletic trainer system. But then also, it's also the data aggregation and then the implementation of that data on that piece. So that's a key distinction of how we are. We are not a software as a service. We are a full service risk management company. and we deliver our services through the injury-free platform, which becomes available to be used by any of the school staff. My understanding now with the new legislation in Nevada on return to learn, that's gonna involve a lot of teachers. That's going to involve a lot of school staff and counselors that aren't going to be in Healthy Roster or ATS or Sportswear. Our system was designed specifically for that, and we have an RTL, a return to learn function, already built into the platform that mirrors the RTP pathways as well. So again, as a former educator, both my parents were teachers. We came at this in a representation of from the schools and not from the health systems, which have their EMRs, which are built for athletic trainers in a health system environment. Big difference.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlie, for that response again as well. Adam, you okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And again, just and not to dismiss your second question, but obviously that's a real big one that would have to go through this entire committee about a recommendation, all in NIA levels, right funding, and the whole process. But we'll address that as we wrap things up. Mr. De Anza, I think we'll wrap up with one more question for you. I've got 5 minutes left here. Go ahead, Mark, if you would, please.
Perfect. Yeah. My question goes back to the virtual athletic trainer thing again. Who are the athletic trainers on the virtual side, and are they licensed in the state to practice athletic training in Nevada? Have we checked that with the Nevada State Board of ATs? And I'll just sort of leave you at that.
I love your question. I love your concerns. We built the system to be flexible so that we can actually provide opportunities for the athletic trainers that are currently working at the high schools with the opportunity for virtual. We can place those athletic trainers in that system. If we have athletic trainers that maybe are part-time at a certain series of school districts, we can put them into the platform. We don't have at this point right now specific athletic trainers for the state of Nevada. Should that need arise, we are going to work with licensed athletic trainers only. They will always be background checked, and they will be from the state of Nevada. But we would look inside of the circle of the high school state athletic system and the state of Nevada Athletic Training Association as well for those athletic trainers to be put into the system. One last comment that I wanted to leave everybody with, because these are a lot of great questions, and obviously there's a lot of implementation discussion here. Who pays for it? Who's using it? How do we scale it? Et cetera, et cetera. Our recommendation, and we've been doing this again for about a decade and a half, everything is different. Everybody's got their own nuances. We also have our existing software systems. We also have our existing relationships and partnerships. What is important is that everybody's on the same page to advance the health and the safety for the children, and it's not about contracts. When that occurs, we can come together, sit down, and plan what the best rollout looks like. Our recommendation is always to crawl before we run. And it's not a light switch that we're going to turn on and all of a sudden magically it's going to be there tomorrow. We need to do that in a systematic way. And that comes from speaking with the people who, like you, who know their state best. You all know what's right for the state of Nevada. And so we would sit down with the committee, understand what the limitations are, understand what those roadblocks may be, potentially what contracts might be in place that could be interfering here, and develop a way to roll out the system slowly over a period of years so that we are able to implement something that's effective in our end goal. My understanding, we're looking for a system that is going to be able to manage our return to learn process, be a useful tool for data aggregation that can then go to the Department of Health or any kind of the regional health systems in the state that would be involved in supporting the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee and those proactive intervention developments and rule changes moving forward. That's what we built the system specifically to do, as well as providing additional benefits to the parents, families, and the schools that they're involved with. So this conversation starts with a roundtable discussion. If there's interest, we'd love to be able to come up, talk about what we think the vision is for the long term and how can we build that. And if we can't, we're going to tell you we can't do it. We're not going to put ourselves in a position that is going to leave you all high and dry. We want to make sure that you guys have the right tools, and ultimately you are being supported on your strategic visions to be successful. So we're happy to step out of the conversation if in any way, shape, or form ATS, Healthy Roster, or anybody else is able to satisfy these same needs. But I would say that, again, we're not a software system. We're a company that's involved in sports safety and very altruistic in our mission.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Mr. One. Thank you, Mr. Brown. So where we are now is when we exit this item, we'll give the opportunity for our committee members to reply to either Mr. Jackson or myself. In due time, I can help him structure if he so wishes to. I'm happy to do so. Agenda as we move into the fall and transition our roles and reconvene, obviously, the Sports Medicine Advisory Committee for the next year, for its next meetings next year. I can certainly recommend to the committee that, you know what, you might want to have this as an action item, because that will give us more opportunity to really engage and indulge in additional questions and really, as Charlie just said, kind of sitting at the table, right? And again, even if this committee does that, there's certainly a lot of levels that have to happen, right? Even ultimately, if there were to be an action out of this committee, it's only a recommendation to go to the Board of Control and the superintendents as our legislative commission to really enact this. But there's a lot of steps to go. So with that, we'll exit this item 6. Charlie, Chris, thank you very much. Either myself or Mr. Jackson will be in communication with you. I don't know what that time frame is, but one of us will be in communication for you as we look towards the early fall and how we go. And don't be afraid by the delay in time to get something going, right? If this is going to happen, I know the both of you also, like our association, we want to do this right. So let's take some time and do it right, so everybody's on board across, from committee members to school principals, administrators, athletic directors, athletic trainers, and of course, all the way up to superintendents. So, okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
All right, we appreciate your time. Good luck, everyone. Have a great
you.
end of the year. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, committee. That's what's well done, and you can see that's why I budgeted 30 minutes for this, because I knew we were gonna have some great questions from all of you. So with that, let's turn to advance to item number 7. And it's kind of what I'd say is like, well, here we go, right? This is turning our attention to what this meeting is most structured about. Just some comments from me before we get going here, and I turn it over to the individuals who will be guiding us through this here. I'm amazed at the progress we've made in organizing this, communicating this, developing this, planning this, approving it, ultimately through the board. Everything that we've done in this entire process with regards to in response to Senate Bill 80, in the last legislative session. To think that everything has been wrapped up in such a short time frame to meet a deadline is pretty phenomenal. So before I turn this over to Dr. Murray, though, I want to give you a time frame with this as well, so you understand it. Today, we are to the point where this is more of an introduction to how this is going to be rolled out. And it is for action, because I want the committee's blessing to do this. Granted, we have to do it anyway. From here, Drs. Murray and Scott will join me in front of the superintendents if Carol's able to make it on May 2nd. And that's their superintendent's meetings at the Washoe County School District building. And then after the superintendent's introduction and presentation, which is along the same lines as what we'll do here, we'll go back to the Board of Control in our June 5th and 6th. That's our regularly scheduled summer meeting for the NIA Board of Control. And after that final blessing, we will blast it out to the world, as I say. And that's the way to do it. So one thing I do want to note is on the pages that are included in here on this rollout, we have the logos will be replaced. We'll put the NIA logo, right? This is a state association policy, certainly created by a couple individuals that have had so much emphasis on this and communicating with you, but really put it together. So without further ado, I think we've got about a 10 to 15 minutes description. Dr. Murray, I'm going to let you start us off, and again, bless your heart for all that you've done for us. So go ahead, sir. It's all yours.
Thanks. I don't think I've heard that for a while, Donnie. My mom told me that a couple of years ago, but appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your hard work so far. The template that I sent out for everybody should be used as a template. So keep that in mind, that this is not to be used by every single school. It's not to be used by every single district. There's multiple ways to approach how we're going to implement the various testing parameters. And as you guys are well aware, Clark County uses something different than we do up here. And so this is an attempt to put together a series of training documentation on how to do the assessments. And the way that we're doing it and approaching it, at least from this perspective currently, is that these are the common tests that you'll see that are reported in the SCAT-6 or the SCOTE-6. So those are the sport concussion assessment tools, for those of you who are not aware, and the sports concussion office assessment tool that exists currently. They are various elements that I've used personally we use here. We've had other folks come alongside us, take a look at them and approve that they do work in the way expected. And it's to outline various ways that you can approach the testing and to give them normative data ranges, how to administer the test, certain facets like that. And so this is to, again, be a little bit more of our template on what we use here, at least at our facility up at UNR. And districts and schools are more than welcome to take this, chew it up, use what they want, but it should provide the vast majority of help that they need. Keep in mind that this document currently is for ages 13 and above. We have a lower age range that we are finishing and working on. Stella's actually helping us currently do that. We've got draft working. It does not change very much, but it does change certain things like how do you ask the symptomology? When you're asking some of the symptoms, are you using a visual analog scale, which is essentially, little smiley faces and things of that nature to indicate how you feel for the lower age ranges, and then gives you some parameters on how to do the tests at those lower age ranges. So for rollout for this, our hope is to post this on the NIA website, which will then get linked to the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Education. And schools can jump in and use this information, download it, ask questions, things of that nature. For ideally, what we're intending with the superintendent's meeting is to present them with some different options and locations and community partners that they can seek out to work with. So for example, Jeremy down at Dignity Health they have their model and it works awesome for them and it's the way that they want it run. And we're giving other districts and schools opportunities to come alongside and partner with them. And talking with Jeremy and a few others, that seems to be the best model. But again, schools can go out and seek their own services. So right now in the state, we really have three dominated elements where we have our documentation, which includes the cognitive testing through Impact. We have C3 Logic down in Clark County. And then we also have Sway, which is being used mostly in the Tahoe area by Dr. Weenan's crew. And so I've kind of outlined for each of those different ways that you can participate, and keeping in mind that if you do get into a software subscription or something of that nature, it will cost some element. And so certain areas, and folks are encouraged to contact those people, like contact Jeremy, contact myself if they want to partner with us and then use our services, because usually we get all of those at a much steeper discount than you going and buying a bulk set of tests right off the bat. So again, in summary, essentially, this is to provide a roadmap for the schools, hopefully, that they can use and take it however they want. And it's worked very well for us here in at least Washoe County. And at that point, I think it's pretty rudimentary, straightforward. And we've had other folks take a look at it this far, Jeremy and Dr. Scott as well. And we've made some edits back and forth, and realizing that on this document, all right, there are certain things like the metabolic testing with the BCTT that none of these are necessarily mandated. They are recommended. And there are things that we think people should be doing based upon the evidence presented to them. But that means that certain sites may not have the capability of doing that, because you can't always do Buffalo concussion treadmill tests if you don't have a treadmill. You could do a bike, but it may not always be comparable, and you may not have the adequate personnel and training. So giving them more of some options that they can pick and choose from. Jeremy, Dr. Scott, anything I'm missing, anything on my end that maybe we missed discussing?
Not from me.
I have a question for Jeremy. Jeremy, if say somebody like a Lincoln County School District wanted to collaborate, can they do that with you through Dignity, or how'd that work? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
okay.
So basically, we're already doing that for some of our rural schools here in Clark County.
Okay, good.
We've got the 33 schools inside the city limits, and then we have all these, I think 5 or 6 outside the city limits. And basically what they do is they have somebody at their school who performs the C3 Logics exam, and then they email me or text me and let me know their test has been done, and I log in, look at the results, and then basically advise them on the next steps, whether they're cleared to reduce the next step of return to play, or if they need to follow up with a physician, or whatever the case may be. So it's a lot of that's done remotely, which is nice. The only requirement for those schools would be they would have to purchase an iPad, and then identify who it is that's going to do it. Our rural schools now have athletic trainers, so it's the athletic trainers that are performing those exams. But before they had ATs, it was the school nurse that was actually performing this. We just don't want it to be a coach, someone who may have some kind of conflict of interest on the student's best health.
Do they pay per service, or is it a fee for the whole thing, or how does that part work for them?
Yeah, so it's a fee per athlete. So basically we wait for a month. So in the fall, we wait a month before the season's going, once rosters are set, and then we have the school provide us with the rosters, and then we charge them a fee per athlete.
Okay.
And so that basically protects them for the whole year. So if you have a football player who pays his fee and then doesn't get a concussion, but maybe he's a track or a wrestler down the line, he doesn't have to repay. It pays one time per athlete. And then we just kind of go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same way it works up in Northern Nevada as well. So it's pretty statewide standard, I would say, at this point. And then one other thing to note on this document that Jeremy brought up some good points is that if you don't have an athletic trainer, okay, this is fine. We can work with that. I understand this is a problem, and it's something that we're adamantly pushing all the time. School nurses can do this. Even techs who are trained sufficiently can do some of these tests. It's just you have to be cautious and careful with any interpretation of that. And realistically, interpretation really should be coming from qualified individuals. So we are recommending that there's partnerships. And that's also why the telehealth model is a very keen interest, at least from our group up here, because it's going to be next to impossible for us at times to get back and forth between various rural areas and our city centers to do some of these testing. So we're exploring all those options, but at least here again is a template you can use and follow with instructions, literature-based to kind of help with the management case.
Thank you, everybody. Really, and Jeremy, thank you as well for being willing to collaborate. Nick has almost just inherently, maybe out of my guidance or my wishes or my hopes or fears thereof, kind of led the way with this whole packet and creation. But to know that the two of you, in our two largest metropolitan areas, and with your platforms and your operations and how you do things, have collaborated to create this. And so my comment about putting the NIA logo on there was not to endorse one particular packet over another one. Again, these are options, as Dr. Murray just said, for schools and districts to pull off and use and create their own template to this degree. So I sincerely appreciate that. Jeremy, just back to you. Any other comments that you have before I open it up the rest of the committee?
No, I have no other comments.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Committee members, you may want to throw up a hand if you have any questions for Nick or Jeremy or Carol. Anybody at this time? Okay, give me 1 second, everybody. If I don't see a hand up, let me double check my, not sharing my email on the screen, I'm just going here on the old fashioned phone way. Let's make sure I don't have any public comment come in on this, because obviously this is a very interested item. I believe Brianna Taylor is, I believe, watching. We've had some communications. I know she's interested in the time frame, right? We start talking about the state level and how it's going to go and how we're getting things out to different groups. But I've explained that a little bit to anybody who's asked about our timeline first, and then how we get it on the website, right? How we allow anybody and everybody, in essence, to spread the word and get this out. And we all have, between all of you as committee members, you certainly have your groups of people that you can then get this out to as soon as possible once we get past the June 5th, 6th board meeting. Not that we don't want to get head start. Honestly, we're going to get a head start on it after May 2nd. So as soon as superintendent say thumbs up, I know the board does need to approve it by the structure of our organization, but we'll be on our way. So I don't see any public comment on here. So that's I guess a positive. So let me go ahead and open up again. Committee members, any other questions, comments? Raise your hand. Make sure I'm not missing anybody. If not, we're probably on our way. Okay.
Quick comment, Donnie.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
We've launched our Sports Medicine Echo series. We talked about the PPE on our first lecture. We're going to do heat illness. Mark Deanza is going to do that for us. And Dr. Murray's going to present on June 20th. We had 90 signups. We had 40 people that actually, and those were also school nurses, athletic trainers, physicians, APNs, nurse practitioners. So, anyone on this committee who would like to be involved in that and sign in, we can send you an email link and spread the word to other people, because it is a nice way that we can get to people all over Nevada.
Wow, the participation, to think we're that far along, and I know we kind of need to be, but to hear that makes my heart sing. That's wonderful. So again, anybody wants to reach out to Dr. Scott, please do so. Obviously her email address is in there. If you need a phone number for Dr. Scott, contact me personally. I don't want her to broadcast that, over the World Wide Web right now. But let me know if you don't have that. But and certainly we get to that point too. If any of you ever want something to be posted on our website with just announcement of a meeting, or if there's an internal structure you want us to send out to, our school athletic department leaders, please let me know. Happy to do that on your behalf, especially as we working through this immediately and get this process going. So good to hear. All right, anybody else? If you hand up, go ahead. If not, we'll move on. Yeah.
Donnie, one quick clarification on the training side, because that was one thing
Sure.
I didn't cover, and I apologize for that. If you consider C3 Logic, Sway, and the way that we work here, kind of hodgepodging everything together, various places will provide the training for you. So if you partner with those individual places or institutions or software, they usually do training. And so with us, for example, this template is specific to us. And so we're also being able to offer, if people want to come on board, we will go ahead and train them as well. And hopefully in that Echo Clinic, we're actually going to walk through some of the exams and essentially how we can use them best practice, and so that you can do them remotely as well. But the training is there at least for those qualified professionals across the various entities.
Thank you, Nick. And that comment you just made right there will be very important to repeat to the superintendents. Because they're right, they're going to look at you and possibly Carol, she's there, and look at me and go, what is this? What do? We don't even know where to start, right? But we are started, and we need to convey that to them, that we are underway. So make them feel at ease that, hey, you can handle your duties as a superintendent. Your staff and the people you deal with, and services we're on our way. So, okay, thank you. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Nope, still no emails. All right. Thank you. I don't know if anybody's listening or everybody understands or nobody cares. One of those three. But we're all right. Well, with that, then let's go ahead and move on to agenda item number 8.
Donnie, that's
oh, I'm sorry, for action. Oh, my
it's an action item, so
oh, sorry, Paul. I'm glad you caught me. I'm so excited that we're rolling through. Okay, with that said, give me 1 second. Let me turn back to my cover page here. With that, do we have a motion to approve as presented, please?
Motion to approve.
This is
Pam.
I'll second.
Thank you, Pam. Appreciate that. Okay, all those in favor remain silent, please. And at this time, anyone opposed, please speak up for your opposition. All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Donnie, I still think you gotta ask for yay votes. You can't just remain silent because we don't know if people are voting yes or no.
Okay.
Or if they are voting yes, we know they're not voting no.
Correct. Well, I can do that. I can rework that obviously with this group. Let me Paul, would you recommend a roll call vote on this, or do you just think a verbal ayes would be good at this point?
Yeah, if you just get verbal ayes, and if it sounds, unanimous without any opposition, then it's pretty clear.
Okay. All right, everybody, if you'd unmute yourselves, please. So once again, all those in favor, please verbally aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed, speak up nay. All right. Mr. Anderson, I think we're good then with that. I appreciate your guidance on that. Stella, I know you're in there. Thank you very much too. I know you're working in the background. So, okay, with that, let's advance on to Item number 8, and this begins on page 38 of your packet. Steve Rohr, representing the Northern Nevada Football Officials Association on this committee, is going to provide a recommendation based on the intended mitigation of injury. And what this is a lower level football time frame for quarters compared to the varsity level. I will start off by saying that this is being done in the Southern Nevada area. Maybe somebody correct me wrong later after the presentation from Steve. That is it's an entire across the board SNOA. What's being done? It is not being done at any level that I'm aware of within the NNOA or the NENOA or the CNSO. I could be wrong. And so what this is to look at the NIA as an organization actually mandating this in amendment to the NFHS football game playing rules. They have quarters, which our association could do. With that, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on and give you 5 minutes to go through here as everybody looks through the packet, and I'll go through the pages. So, Mr. Rohr, go ahead, sir.
Okay, thanks, Donnie, and hello, everyone. This presentation was actually made by me sometime last year. I don't know if it was August, one of our meetings earlier. I have revised it very slightly, so most of us have already seen this. This shouldn't take too long. Basically, the revision is that the original proposal was to reduce quarter lengths of all sub-varsity contests from 12 to 10 minutes. And the revision now is to reduce only those games are the first game of a doubleheader. So typically we would have a doubleheader, a freshman game followed by a JV game, or in some cases it's a JV game followed by a varsity game. We cannot revise, and we're not proposing to revise varsity. We can't because it's mandated by rule from the NFHS. But the first game under this proposal will be reduced to 10-minute quarters. I've been on this committee since the inception, and obviously the focus is concussions, which is a very serious injury, as we all know. And mostly I've just been a listener because I don't have any medical background. I don't know all these protocols and stuff, and everything sounds good to me. But I was wondering, as a football official, how can I participate and how can I help? And I came up with, well, I think the best injury is the one that never occurs. And so what we're trying to do here with this proposal is actually mitigate the exposure to risk of concussion. We have football officials on here, not baseball or volleyball, probably because football has the most concussions. I mean, kids are running into each other, sometimes at very high speed, and they just have a huge risk of getting injured. You can get concussion in any sport, I realize that, but football has the most exposure to that. So I came up with this. A typical football game is about 150 plays. It can range anywhere from 120 to 200, but the average is probably about 150. The lower level contests, freshman JV, are usually lower than that for a couple of factors. The kids aren't as sophisticated. The officiating crews aren't as sophisticated and as efficient. So it's typically about 10% less, around 130, 135 plays. Reducing the quarters from 12 to 10 means a reduction from 48 minutes of playing time to 40. It's a 17% reduction. And just the math on that is about 22 plays per game based on the average. Games will still have well over 100 plays per contest. This is simply math. Less exposure, less injury risk. We can't predict when a severe injury like a concussion is going to occur. The NFHS has implemented rules in the last several years to help mitigate that. Targeting these blindside blocks with great force are now illegal. Defenseless receivers can't be blown up anymore. But if I'm on the field, I can't prevent that from happening. All I can do is throw a flag if it is a foul. Sometimes it may not be a foul if somebody gets injured also. If we can reduce the exposure to that, then by numbers, we will reduce probably these kids' risk to injury. Also, just reducing plays reduces all injuries, not just concussions, but separated shoulders or cramps or what have you. So that's a proposal. I believe this is in existence. This practice is in existence in Clark County in the South from officials I've talked to down there or those who have worked down there. In the North and the East, like Donnie said, we still have 12-minute quarters every game. This would provide consistency throughout the state. Now, that has nothing to do with medical risk or anything like that. It's just being consistent. Also, it'll be a little more convenient for the players, coaches, and officials, but that comes outside of the purview of this committee. What we're really talking about is risk reduction.
All right. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate your presentation. We'll have a few questions here, and we'll kind of keep it within the time frame. Again, this is a discussion item, and again, as background, number one, the NIA has, as an association, the ability to amend game playing rules to a degree which doesn't change the outcome or the structure of the game. Quarter minutes wouldn't necessarily at lower levels change the structure of the game. Again, we want to make sure we still have representation on the NFHS Sports Rules Committee voting through the voting process, so we're not in jeopardy of that here. And also, just as a note, certainly right now, associations or official associations have the ability to get agreements with schools and/or districts to do such a reduction, i.e., what's happening in the SNOA. Coach Howard, I'm going to run the first question to you because this is right from the northern side of it. What do you feel about this? I'm going to ask you two questions. One, what do you feel about this at the lower level? And then what do you feel about this of being possibly the first game of the day? Because sometimes, in rare occasions, northern schools still play, the large enrollment schools still play 3 games in a day, once in a great while. So anyway, to you, Coach Howard.
Yeah, I respect what Steve has to say. It's very interesting. Some very good points here. The thing that I have concern about is, our program, we are about getting kids ready to play for varsity. And so you're going to take 17%, 22 plays away every single game. And we're a program, and trust me, I can share a lot of emails with you, a lot of very disgruntled, upset people with me that we play everybody every single game. We don't worry about that. We have starters. We have 22 starters. We're not allowed to have two-way guys on our lower levels because we want to make sure everybody hits the field. I would make an argument, maybe a better policy would take a page out of Pop Warner and make everybody have to play. And they've got a chart. Every program's got a chart how many plays every kid's getting. And there should be a play minimum, just like there is in Pop Warner. I don't know if it's 6 or 8 plays per half, but that would be my argument. These young men, they spend a lot of time practicing for a very short amount of game time. And if you're going to use it as a tool to get them ready for varsity and make the game safer, my argument would be more time actually would be better, more reps.
That's an interesting perspective. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. Coach Stallworth, I'm going to still put the coach in front of your the title in front of your last name for a minute. Same question to you.
I agree with Coach Howard, and I really think at this particular time, we have so many parameters and methods set up with what we're trying to do to help the kids out and prepare them, the running clock on blowout games and all of those things. Coaching, I think, is better. I think we're preparing our kids better each week. And I would like to see a couple of things. Number one is I want to say, if I remember correctly, the last time we heard that presentation, there was something about getting a survey out from the coaches to see what kind of numbers we got with regards to our football coaches in agreement with this and what that percentages look like as far as cutting those down. And guys, if you remember a couple of years ago, we had to cut down the number of minutes we have in practice. We had to cut down, of course, as you know, the number of times we can actually hit. All of those things have really reduced our ability to practice. And in this case, this is an example of taking that game time away from us as well. So I agree with Ernie that I think we have some things in place right now that actually does that. And I wouldn't say that I completely disagree with that, but with this process, but I would say that if two coaches agree to that at halftime or agree to that even before the running clock thing even takes place, I think it could be a game by game and a decision by decision upon the playing condition and the playing field itself and the opponents who are playing each other. But to make it actually set in stone that these games would be this time, I don't think that's the thing to do at this particular time.
Okay, thank you, Coach Stallworth. Steve, back to you. I think just one thought from me is if we were to go forward with this, is that we would not necessarily designate as the first game of the day. I think we'd make it clean to say at all freshman level games where schools and leagues have freshman level games and or all JV level games. Not again out of all our smaller levels, we'll certainly have JV teams. But if we specify it that way, again, that's not a critique to this because I know that's what your intent is for lower levels, but we just specify it rather than the first game of the day. We'd probably specify all lower levels. Let me just kind of open it up to our ATCs that are there. Nicole, I just happen to see you on there. What are you? This is a loaded question. We're throwing out stuff here. Have you seen or know of injuries at the lower levels occurring more frequently or more drastically than at the varsity level? I just spitballing here, so go ahead if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's loaded. Yes and no. Like as mentioned, they are less coordinated. They're still learning. They haven't played as long. So injuries are happening at a more frequent rate. I wouldn't say they're larger injuries or worse injuries, but happening at a more frequent rate. The other, I guess, thing to consider is the time of the game. Down here, freshman usually plays at 4, JV at 6:30. So at 4 o'clock, it's still really hot. So we see more of heat issues during our freshman games than other sort of like orthopedic injuries, because those are at 4 o'clock, and 4 o'clock in Vegas is hot. So we see a lot more of those types of injuries, as well as, increased fatigue and things like that, just due to sort of the setting that they're in, as opposed to even JV that's at 6:30 or varsity that's at 6 or 7, depending on what school you're at.
And that's a whole other interesting perspective. Well, you answered that question well, just for all of us to hear right. There's heat-related issues, and especially the new turf and school, all those kind of things. So, no, thank you. Hey, Adam, your school still has 3 levels, right? I hope I'm not mistaken in that. And, are you seeing something at there at Carson with regards to freshman to JV to varsity levels?
I'm just going to echo what Nicole said. Even in Northern Nevada in early fall, like by late fall, temperatures aren't really an issue, but early fall, August into September, even up here, we're starting our freshman games. It's in the 90s still. And so I definitely am seeing more of, that cramping, dehydration, fatigue, those things in our freshman game, more so than the others. As far as more orthopedic injuries, honestly, anecdotally, it's pretty evenly spread across the levels. Injuries happen in football at any level, really. I did kind of want to echo from an athletic training perspective, at least from my athletic training perspective. I really liked what Coach Howren had to say. If we weren't going to reduce game time, another really good way to maybe reduce exposures and injury risk is treat JV, sub-varsity football, JV and freshmen as developmental, and maybe set every player has to play 10 snaps or whatever, more evenly distribute those snaps would reduce exposures for some of those players that are getting majority of the time, place more focus on that developmental time, which is what those sub-varsity levels are supposed to be. I'd actually be a huge fan of that, personally.
Well, Mr. Jackson, we might have a different agenda item that we don't want to go too far off topic on this one, but that might be something on our on our next agenda. So let's see, just two
Hey,
more.
hey,
and we'll
Donnie?
move on. Yeah, Tim,
Donnie,
go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we're already playing 10 minutes down here for BNJV, aren't we? Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't remember us not. That, I mean, I'm talking since the 90s. So I think we've been 10 minutes for quite a while.
Yeah, thank you. And that's actually my final question here. I've got 5 more minutes budgeted for this one, so we'll wrap up right at 2:30 on time. And Tim, this may be to you, but maybe more to Ms. Sloan, and maybe more to you. How did we come about, if you happen to know, the agreement with the SNOA, with our Southern member schools to agree to reduce that time for the lower level games? Anybody can explain how that came about?
I don't know if it was a reduction, Donnie, or if it's always been implemented since it's a time frame that's set by the NFHS as acceptable. I mean, I was a football coach here in 94, and we weren't playing 12 minutes then, and I don't think we've ever been beyond 10 minutes.
No, Donnie, this is Pam, and I would just say that was probably an agreement amongst the district and SNOA. And my question is, would this have to come to the board? Or is this something that districts and associations can do on their own? Because that's what we did, apparently in the South.
Yeah. No, Pam, you're spot on with that question. So yeah, to reiterate, 2 things. One is if it does come to the board, and it would have to go to the board to make a statewide mandate. Lower level football games, these are your quarter timeframes. That would be a statewide mandate. If that doesn't come to the board, yes, every school and every district has their opportunity on their own to engage with their local officials association to agree to change that amount, right? So that's why the SNOA does this. At some point, the CCSD and other Southern schools who are under the auspice of the SNOA have agreed to this, but the NIA never approved that, right? The board level. So the option exists locally to go ahead and do it, right? And that doesn't violate any FHS rules. But again, if we want to mandate it across the board at the state level, then it would have to come to the board, where you have to do it, no local decision control, etc. So I think leaving this item, a couple suggestions would be we need to, I know we don't officially at the NIA level have coaches associations presidents, right? That doesn't exist within the NIA vernacular, but we know those exist in coach associations. Ernie, to you, when you get into your preseason meetings next year, depending on who your coach association president is going to be, and I realize it's primarily a 4A, 5A, but I know you tie in 3A schools, but we can certainly address this at the 1A, 2A level with athletic administrators and directors. Would you please make a note to do a survey on this, on what you think? Because those meetings are going to happen, like in late July, early August, in advance of this next SMAC meeting, and to have input. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Okay, Tim, obviously taking over. You think about preseason meetings coming up, right, with our administrators and directors, just like I said. Let's make this an agenda item, and I'll note it on my notes to make sure I remind you as well, to have a talk with it at the athletic administrative level. And then, to our Southern coaches, I don't know if it's Coach Morocco. I'm sorry, I'm just top of my head. I can't remember who the president of Southern Nevada Coach Association president is, but same thing. So let's go at a local level with coaches, get input. Let's go at a school by school level, a league level, with our administrators, directors. And then Steve, I think that will give us some really good feedback as we bring this back for possible action in our next SMAC meeting. Okay. And if it gets to that point, right, just like our previous item with injury free, we have a blessing. If we ultimately get that way, a blessing out of this committee, then we take it to the board as a statewide mandate, or it doesn't go any further out of this group and it's still available to do at a local level, school by school, district by district, in a conjunction with their association. Okay. That sound like a good plan to everybody?
Donnie, if I may, this proposal is coming from officials. I would really like to hear the input of our athletic trainers. Yeah. And like you said, coaches, not just everybody involved to see the need for this. I just sometimes have a problem in a situation like this that I think that could be resolved within districts and their associations, stuff like this coming to the board.
Yeah, so Dr. Stovak, I'll get to you in just a second. So Adam, certainly I know you can send out an email with this to your colleagues in Northern Nevada. Jeremy, Nicole, same thing, right? I know you can forward this to your contacts that will help represent us in the South. So let's do that. If you're all okay with that. So that way we'll have three levels of input, right? We'll have our ATCs, we'll have our coaches, and we'll have our athletic directors and administrators. that'd be great. So thank you all if you'd be willing to do that. Dr. Stovak, yeah, we'll wrap this thing up here in a couple minutes. One question from you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I just have a question of if it's done in the South but not the North, is there any data that shows that the South has less injuries than the North, or that the South doesn't develop their players as well as the North does? Like, I guess, what's the data that's out there? And then I'm just thinking of this from an NCAA SMAC perspective. Like, if this came to that NCAA SMAC, it would be like something to review that is coming from a rules perspective. It's not really like, and so the SMAC would just take a position of support, don't support, or no position. So I'm guessing at this point we're at no position, but it could still go forward either way, right? Through a rules committee.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Those are great questions. To answer your first one, no, clearly we don't have any data. I don't know how we would generate that data. I'd probably have to refer to the experts later on, Nicole and Jeremy and Adam, to work with their colleagues to find that out. Second answer, right? It could go to a rules committee. We have a rules, regulations, and policies committee. Typically, right now, I've got that committee focused on Nevada administrative codes. This is not an administrative code. This is a game playing rules, and the proposal to change the game playing rules is because of health, safety, and welfare, right? My words. And so that's why I started with this committee. Could it go to the rules committee? Yes. Is it necessarily through the NIA's process? Our process is different than the NCAA, so I don't know that really would need to do that. I think this committee itself could provide a recommendation and go straight to the board without the other committee intervening. I think. I'll let our president and vice president, I know Mr. Stallworth's on here as well, they can intervene with me at another time to do that. So with that, what was I missing? Was I missing one more thing? I thought I was going to comment one more thing, but I can't remember what it was for the life of me. So I think we're good. So anyway, we've got some data we're going to generate. We're going to have a lot of input we're going to generate through our leaders in here, through those 3 different levels, right? Again, our trainers, our coaches, our athletic administrators, with a lot of stuff to happen coming up in the fall, and get some input, and we can come back to this in our next meeting. Next SNAC meeting. Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments to this? Steve, thank you. Thank you for your time on this. I know you're you're caring, right? And that's what this is about. So
you're welcome. And I appreciate the comments from both Ernie and Ron on this also.
Thank you. All right. Let me double check one last email. We'll go to public comment here. I'm going to read it and then give me a second to check it. So here's our page 43. This is moving on to item number 9. We're just about ready to wrap things up. Let me scroll through to there. One last read of public comment. Mr. Anderson, would you like me to read this verbatim, or are we okay to understand that we're going to ask for public comments, and I'll take a minute to check my emails?
Yeah, I think you can just ask for public comment. You read it the first time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right. Give me 1 minute here. No, I am not seeing any of that. Anybody on your end, anybody you visit with, anybody from all of you that have received a text or a correspondence here since the meeting started that you need to echo into the record for this group? Okay, not seeing any hands. Please speak up if I'm missing you. If I'm not seeing you, I'm trying to go down the arrow here. No? Okay. All right, with that, before we get into an adjournment, right on time here, again, just a comment back to all of you as a committee. Mr. Jackson, I'll work with you if you'd like me to help plan out the next meeting date for this committee. I know you'll be long into your role as the executive director of the NIA. So, and I'll provide you obviously with all the email addresses for all of our committee members here. They will work through me for a little while longer to also work with you and through you to create an agenda for the next meeting. So, and again, for all of you, I'll certainly be around in Reno. I'm not leaving anywhere. You'll see me at games, being a high school sports fan. So, also, Mr. Jackson, I'll communicate with you with regards to the National Federations SMAC. They have their major meeting coming up here. If I'm correct, it's coming up here in another month or so. I'll wait to see what their agenda items are and see what relates back to this committee. Right when we started this committee here 3 years ago, it was we spent some time. Greg Elkins, bless his heart, he just passed away, but he was the director there, and I worked with him personally over the phone and in-person at meetings to help us structure this committee and to get us started with agenda items. And then we just had some stuff come to the legislature. We took off from there. So there we go. But you just for all of you, for an email address, if you'd like to write it down at this point, For Mr. Jackson, picking up his NIA email address now. It is T as his first initial for Tim. T Jackson, JACKSON. So T Jackson, first initial, full last name at NIAA.com. Okay. So again, NIA.com, TJacksonNIA.com. If you want to email him with your ideas, and you certainly copy me, until that time when I depart from the NIA. So with that, just kind of closing here, I want to thank you all, committee members, for being willing and able to serve on here. I kind of said at the beginning, right? What we've accomplished in really 3 years of starting this up is pretty amazing. Some things we've done on our own, and some of the things we've said you have to do this, and we've executed the game plan, I think, to pretty good perfection. For all of you, it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort out of your normal day jobs to spend some time thinking about all of this realm, right? Transferring into the high school sports realm. Not that you all aren't involved in the high school sports realm in one way or another, but just doing what you do on a daily basis, and being positive and again really productive with everything you've helped me get through here. So yeah, a lot of time. I'm gonna leave it at that. Kind of this is absolutely an incredible group, and I couldn't have put together not that I'm taking the credit for it. We couldn't have put together a better group, and you're just wonderful individuals and people, and I'm gonna be around. I'm gonna miss you. I'm gonna miss you all from this realm, but like I said, I'll be around, and you're more than welcome to email me, call me, text me anytime you ever want. And I know Tim's gonna be really successful with this group. He's got a good start, and I'm also here to help guide him. So I want to make sure he's successful, because this group is absolutely important. More so probably than any other group. Well, maybe outside of realignment, but we'll leave that alone. So thank you, Mark. That's all I've got. We're gonna wrap it up here in just a second. Mark, go ahead.
I just want to thank you, because I think you personally saved this committee. So without you, it didn't exist.
Yeah, thanks for your
I
help, Donnie.
appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, like I said, just you're wonderful, and please roll forward, right? Thank you, Adam. Yeah, thank you, everybody. All right, with that, let's call an adjournment at 2:27, everybody. Yeah, we're back together in the fall. Okay, take care.